Are you one of those people who says you're not a gin drinker? Or perhaps you're a whiskey lover who hasn't really ventured into gin yet? Well, today I have a treat for you. Stay tuned. We're talking all about barrel-aged gin, and I promise you'll be ready to dive into your soon-to-be gin love affair by the end of this video. All right, Tippler Nation. So seriously, I don't want to hear any more of this, I'm not a gin drinker. Instead, how about I just haven't found my gin soulmate yet? That's more like it. Now that we're on the same page, in the spirit of finding even the most adamant gin skeptics their gin, we're going to talk about barrel-aged gin. And as a fantastic example, especially for you whiskey lovers, we'll be diving into this treat from St. George Spirits here in California. So barrel-aged gins are exactly what they sound like. Gin that has been aged in used wine or whiskey barrels. Keep in mind that most gins aren't aged at all, but the whole idea of barrel aging a gin isn't new. In fact, it first happened almost by accident when gin was being transported across the ocean in barrels. The barrels were practical from a transportation standpoint, but then when they got to their final destination, there was a happy little surprise. A touch of sweetness, spice, and at times a hint of coloring, depending on how long the journey was across sea. For a while, this was known as yellow gin. Not a super appealing name, probably. But despite that, it never gained much popularity, so it's been something pretty under the radar until recently, as the craft cocktail resurgence has increased interest in gin in general and in this more nuanced style of gin. So, the important question. What does it taste like? Barrel-aged gins honestly tend to drink more like whiskey lights to me than anything else. It has a depth and richness that's unexpected for gin, yet that bright botanical essence remains. And beyond the barrel aging, there's often another difference to these gins. Whereas most gins are made from a neutral spirit, like vodka, many of these barrel-aged gins actually start from unaged whiskey. So even before the aging, there's some more complexity and personality beneath the botanicals. So you guessed it, if you're a whiskey lover looking to learn how to appreciate gin, this is a great starting point, aged or not, actually. So for example, St. George Spirits makes a dry rye gin with 100% unaged rye base. As we all know, rye is not neutral. It's naturally, even when unaged, has some spicy warmth and body to it, maybe even a little malty characteristic to it. So even without aging, this gin from St. George might be exactly where you should start, especially if you're a whiskey drinker. But to take it a step further, we have here that same dry rye gin in their Reposado version, which means it's aged, and it's aged in used Syrah and Grenache barrels. So now we have a gin made out of rye, aged in wine barrels. Pretty fun. So let's take a sip, shall we? Party in your mouth. And seriously, that's what this is. The brightness of gin, the warmth of rye, the complex depth of wine. I love it. And I think you will too, even if you think you hate gin. So while I'm happy to sip on my barrel-aged gin straight, they are also phenomenal in cocktails that call for whiskey or bourbon. So seriously, like make an old fashioned out of one. I bet half your friends won't even be able to identify it as gin, despite the fact that it is. That's actually a super fun game and one of the best ways to get gin skeptics to open their mind to gin. Trick them into it with a barrel-aged gin. But seriously, old fashions, Negronis, Americanos, you name it, using a barrel-aged gin in it, delicious. Okay, so while this particular barrel-aged gin is a little bit hard to find, our nice friends at St. George Spirits have a link to contact them for help finding it on their dry rye gin page at stgeorgespirits.com. If you can't find the St. George Dry Rye Reposado gin, don't despair, we won't leave you hanging. Depending on where you live, a few other barrel-aged gins that we are currently loving at the Crafty Cask are Few Spirits Barrel Gin from Chicago, Wireworks Special Reserve Gin from Grand 10 Distilling out in Boston, and lastly, Caledonia Spirits Bar Hill Tomcat Reserve in Vermont. And if you're looking for other incredible gins that maybe aren't aged to start out your exploration, head on over to thecraftycask.com at this link here for 3 other non-aged bottles that we recommend. So there you have it. Gin lovers, gin skeptics, whiskey lovers, I want to hear from all of you. Have you tried barrel-aged gins? If so, what did you think? If you haven't, are you intrigued to try one now? I hope so. When you do, make sure to let us know what you think and share what great finds you are finding out there. And until next time, drink craft and drink local. Cheers.